Hey everyone, we were planning to do an Instagram live today, but Instagram had other ideas, so we decided to record an as live for you, complete with bumps and mistakes and cheat sheets and everything else. Just to introduce ourselves, to talk about our Tragic to Magic film, and answer any questions you might have. Um, I'm Amber. My son Jagger is in spirit, and his sign started the day he passed. And I'll introduce Sarah next, if you just want to say hello and introduce Elijah.
I'm Sarah, and my son Elijah passed when he was 17 years old. Same thing. Immediately the day after he passed, I was getting signs. I knew he was with me, like without a doubt.
And Amy.
My son McKellar passed at 19, and the very next day, I knew that he still existed and I was going to find him.
We wanted to make this film because, first of all, we were blown away and searching for answers. Like, what am I experiencing? Like ghost stories aren't really in the, traditional grief groups or in grief therapy. And we were looking for answers of what was happening in our lives. We wanted to put faces to the stories. Let's just start with um how we like what inspired you, and I'll answer. One of the reasons that for me that the three of us are doing this together was because of all of the synchronicities and
Mhm.
commonalities between our stories.
Yeah.
um Sarah and I met in one of Sue Frederick's classes, where we were the only two people in our little breakout room who had a child in spirit. They passed within a month of each other, and
Mm.
they both have a sister with the same name that's not common. That's their dad's child. And there are other synchronicities. I don't know if either of you want to talk about why you are feel drawn to the three of us together doing this film.
Well, I would definitely say that every time we talk, it's another similarity between our boys. I'm like,
Mhm.
no way.
Yep.
So it just always is just never ceases to amaze me. So that's a huge one. And even like their personalities, like
Yep.
just those gentle giants are like just so
Mhm.
much love and just, I don't know. It just is a bond. I can't really explain it.
Yeah.
And I'd add on that, Sarah. I mean, I feel the same way when we were in our little group. It was like our three boys were so alike. Their personality, their love for others, their wanting to help others, and their charisma. It's like they're so similar. And we're having the same sort of signs
Why
and in
don't
the
you
same
show the
place.
sign that you got right
Okay.
before you got on the
Yes.
call?
Right before I got on the call, um, I found literally three pennies. One, two, three. And I was like, Jagger, Elijah, and McKellar getting ready for me to get there and get online. They're like, get there, mama, which should have been up to my step. But that was really cool. These synchronicities that keep happening. Our boys are so similar. They're so similar.
Mhm.
And I feel like also as mamas, we're similar. Like we're
Mhm.
getting the same type of things occurring. And I don't, I feel bonded to you all.
Who wants to take what was your first holy crap sign
Well,
from your son?
so Amber, I don't know, is this from McKellar or is this from higher consciousness? And that's where I keep going, like, which one is it? I mean, waking up the next morning and being able to see energy. I knew he is still existing. Was that from him? Was that from angels? Was that from spirits? But it was like, oh my God, it changed the trajectory of my healing. It did not take away the despair, the anguish, but I had hope because I knew for sure that that I was being shown that he is alive, and I'm going to find him. I'm going to connect. Um, we're going to have this connection. And then I think it was that week later, I was sitting on the couch with my daughter and her friends were visiting, and all of a sudden the lamp turned on that was not on in the middle of the day. And then it turned off again. And then it turned back on. And I was like, okay, game
Don't you
on,
just get
man.
to a point where you're like, hi, McKellar, you know?
Yeah, I did. And I'll share this one more because I know you can edit. I was gifted a session with Tina Powers, 6 weeks. Tina Powers, who's an evidential medium, 6 weeks after McKellar died. And um, Will, my son, had been having nightmares that he shared with me about McKellar. And Tina said, that the nightmares are going to end for Will. And here's what McKellar wants him to do instead. And I, she, she couldn't have known that. There's no way. Will was
Yeah.
having a nightmare that he was picking up a gun and shooting McKellar. And he said, tell him to pick up a flower and hand it to me. And I was blown away. So it's hard to say which one actually, but I was like, oh my God, he really is still here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sarah, do you want to answer the same question?
Well, besides the obvious light flickering right away, in whatever room I went into, um, I went to sleep. You know, you wake up in the morning, you kind of are in that weird space. I closed my eyes again, and I literally felt on my ear, like when somebody whispers in your ear, you actually feel the tickling. Mom, guess what? And I didn't hear internally, I heard it externally. And then he said, I'm in the kitchen. And he started laughing. And that's his personality. And I sprung up from bed like, Elijah's here. And I knew it was so real. It was incredible. Like my whole body was chills. I could not believe it. And then I welcomed more. And then it just kept coming.
Yeah, and I don't remember the first like, oh my God, but he started with the smoke alarms the day he passed.
Yeah.
And I think it was just, I mean, the first time I knew I was really hearing him was when I went to a gallery for one of our mamas who we know. Her son was, you know, very new in spirit. And I was like, I don't really need another reading. At that point, I'd had a few readings and I felt good. And I asked him, I said, can you bring through her son? And she really needs this. And he's like, Mom, I got you. And so I kept asking him, I'm like, I really need you. I'm going to pay and I'm going to go to this thing and I'm going to sit in the audience with her. I really need you to bring him through. Mom, I got you. I'm driving out to Long Island and I'm like, Jagger, I really need you to see. He's like, Mom, chill. I got you. And sure enough, we sit in the audience and I could feel his exasperation. Like, I told you already. And Laura Lynn Jackson, this medium who we all are familiar with, walks right up to us and says, do you have children, sons in spirit? We were just like, and then she gave me just enough to know that she really had Jagger. And then she gave her the reading she really needed for her son who'd only been in spirit like 6 months. It was the moment that I said, I really am hearing him. I'm not making this up.
Yeah.
This is real. Um, do we want to talk about one of the things about our stories that really were a big deal for me was that we each had what we're calling dress rehearsals
Yeah.
before. And I know
Yeah.
if you want to
Yeah.
give like the abbreviated, like what happened, and I don't
Yeah.
know who wants to start.
Yeah. It,
Go
I'm
ahead.
I'm fine starting. So it was Friday, June 30th, and McKellar would never leave the house ever without saying goodbye to me in whichever what form he needed to. Was it screaming, yelling, I'm out the door, whatever. But if he was going on a trip, he would always would be a long, drawn out big hug, kiss, I love you, safe travels. And he was headed to the beach that day with his father and his siblings for Fourth of July weekend. And when I got up and recognized he was gone, it hit me that he had ended his life. And I fell to the ground and started bawling and begging him to stay alive and to not die. And I started calling him, and he wouldn't answer his phone. Um, so I just quickly gathered myself together and ran over to my ex-husband's house where they were all going to get leaving for the beach. And Scott answered the door, and I was like, something's not wrong. McKellar left without saying goodbye to me, and that's not normal. And he's like, yeah, when I opened the door at 7:30, he was sitting in his truck. I'm like, something's wrong. Something's not normal. And he's like, let me call him down. And I thought I would just like pretend that I was coming over to say goodbye to the twins for the beach. And I could just see that darkness in his eyes. And I felt the sadness and I felt it. I knew something was not right. But I, again, did that whole thing where, oh, you don't want to say something because you're going to put the idea in their head. Anyway, so it was the very next day when McKellar did end his life.
Wow. Sarah, do you want to share yours?
Sure. So I would say this is about 2 months prior to Elijah passing. I was very pregnant. I was probably 7 months at that point. And I was laying in bed. It was like getting close to midnight, and I had to work the next day. And I was texting him. I'm like, where are you? I won't go to sleep till you get home. He's like, I'm on my way. It was always, I'm on my way, always on my way. 5 minutes away. I'm like, okay. So the windows were open because it was summer. And literally, I heard so many gunshots, like as though they were in my yard. It was like an automatic rifle, at least 20 shots. And I got out of bed, ran downstairs, ran outside like a mother doesn't care. Like I thought my child was out there because this was within 5 minutes. And I ran to the alley. I ran to my yard. I was like screaming his name, hysterically crying, bawling. And there's no one around. It's like nothing, like no sirens, like nobody, like nothing's happening. So I'm like hysterical. I'm running around the house. I'm calling his phone. He's not answering. I'm like, oh my God, he's been killed. Very strange. I ran to the front door, did another lap in the front, ran back to the back door, and sure enough, he's standing at the back door. And I'm like, where have you
Oh,
been? Oh my
yeah.
God, what happened? Where have you been? And he's just like, nowhere. I just got dropped off. I'm like, you didn't hear all those gunshots? Like, what did you like see a car drive, or what happened? And then he's like, no, why are you making such a big deal about it? I'm fine. It's okay. Like, chill. Like, it's all right, mom. Everything's okay. But I was so hysterical. And then eventually then the police came. And I mean, it was across down the street, and I don't live in a neighborhood that has that kind of crime. It was, they were going after somebody's parents' house. So it was just very strange for any of that to happen. And then, 2 months later, he does end up getting shot and killed. So it was just like a
Mm.
total dress rehearsal. The way I reacted was just so extreme. Can you imagine this
Yeah.
pregnant woman like running through in the dark, at midnight outside with bare feet, screaming your
Mhm.
child's name on the ground?
Yeah.
I'm sure the neighbors were
Yeah.
like, "What is going on?"
Yeah. Sarah,
Well, it makes
absolutely.
me
Yeah.
wonder how common it is. I mean, for me, it was 2 weeks to the day, and I was looking for something in his room, and I found these 3 pages that he wrote, and they were like, expressing regret about how he was in relationships and all these different family things. And I was like, oh my God, is this a suicide note? Even though he'd never expressed
Hmm.
suicidal thoughts or anything.
Hmm.
As far as I knew, he was at work, but I lost it and I was crying and I called my parents and my mom's like, where is he right now? And I called him or I reached out to him at work and he's like, Mom, you're freaking me out. Like, what's wrong? And I was like, I'm picking you up from work. We're going to talk. And like, I went through all the feelings. I sat with him in the parking lot and I just
Hmm.
said, I got to tell him all these things, like how proud I was of him and how, set him straight about things that he was blaming himself for. That I just said, sometimes adults disappoint us. This is not your fault. And I got to tell, and I said, if anything ever happened to you, it would destroy me. And we both got teary. And then 2 weeks to the day, I get a call. He took a pill and the pill took him out. And it's just, I kind of wonder, and I would just say to anybody who's watching this, particularly with a child in spirit, share your story. Did you also have a dress rehearsal, like we're calling it,
Mhm.
Um, I did have one question that I wanted to ask. We're getting close to closing, but one of the questions that was brought to me was, what do you hope people who do not have a child in spirit, whose child is still living, will take from this film?
Mm. Oh. Well, I mean, that's a big one, Amber, right? I get it. Sarah?
Biggest part for me would be don't sweat the small stuffs.
Oh
I
yeah.
wish I did
Yeah.
not harp
Yeah.
on him. I harped him. I read all my text messages. I went back in the past, scrolled.
Hmm.
I'm like, I was such a nag. Take out the garbage, clean up your room. Why is this? What about your grades? What
Mm.
about in the big scope of things? When did I ever, I did actually have intuitive feelings to show him extra love for some reason. Clearly, it
Yeah.
was because
Yeah.
we were preparing, but I'm so thankful I did. But I mean, just love your child and just be with them and support them and love
Hmm.
them. Like your children come first, period.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like that's it. I would not sweat the small stuff.
And you know what? And I'd add on that I remember realizing because we fought so hard to keep McKellar alive, that what I recognized was how little control we do have. Like love
Mhm.
cannot cure mental illness. So
Yep.
parents who are watching this, you know, I we did. McKellar was so loved, and yet he still ended up ending his life. He had treatment, but yet he still ended up ending his life. And what can you control? What's in your control? What's not in your control? And being in compassion and non-judgment when these or your child is struggling, to really just hold that space for them and listen to them and not judge it. For me, I think it's something I'd want to pass on.
Yeah. And I mean, I would just say, something that a good friend of mine said to me, which is lead with love, always lead with love. And I had the
Mhm.
same feeling, Sarah, that you had looking back at our text. I was like, God, I was like nagging him. Who cares about taking the recyclables out, really? But we are getting almost to time. I think in future, we will go live again and we'll answer
Yeah.
questions. If this video has prompted any questions, please add them below and we'll address them. I think some of the things that we want to talk about are how to communicate with your child directly. You don't need a medium to do it if you have a child in spirit or any loved one in spirit. And I imagine that we'll touch on soul contracts, which are not 100 level at all. I think we can all agree. For me, anyway, when I first heard about soul contracts, I was like, all right, it's a little too groovy for me. But
Yeah.
it's funny how over time, the deeper you go, the things that you learn on this. And I guess any closing thoughts before we conclude?
Just back to what you would say to a parent. It's being that, again, just elaborating, being on that, more of that, really listening to your child and being able to sit there and hold that space and witness what they're going through without judging it and trying to fix it, and being in that space with them with love.
Yes.
So thank you for watching. If you would follow our Instagram, Tragic to Magic Film, go to our website, tragic-to-magic.com. Every share, every comment helps get the word out about the film. And thank you, my lovely mamas, and thank you all.
Yeah.